Good evening, dear listener. I'm pleased you've returned to my little cottage by the sea, where the hearth is always warm and stories wait like old friends. The Willow Cove Collection offers you a harbor, a place where whispered tales blend with the rhythm of waves and the gentle pop of burning driftwood. In our corner of the world, there is no need for haste. We simply sit, listen, and remember what it means to be carried by words. You'll find no orchestration here, only my voice, the fire's quiet conversation, and the eternal dialogue between shore and tide. For those seeking rest beneath stories, I hope you'll make this lighthouse your own. Consider subscribing so you'll know when I've set a new lantern in the window. And should you wish to keep our lamp trimmed and burning, a small offering for tea would be most appreciated. It helps me tend both flame and tale. This evening I'll share The Night the Lantern Burned, a remembrance of gales, unexpected visitors, and how even the smallest flame refuses darkness. Now then, find your comfortable place, let your breath match the seas, and allow the tide to bring you home. The Night the Lantern Burned, the morning journal entry. I wake before the sun. The cottage holds its breath. The air is the color of sea glass and sleep, a hush so delicate you could rest a teacup on it. Most mornings I lie in bed and let the salt wind finish what the dream started. But today an urge pulls me up before the tide. My knees ache less than usual, so I don't complain. I swing my legs over the wool blanket and plant my feet on the cold, uneven floorboards, counting the knots and scars in the wood the way a child counts sheep. I built this floor myself, once upon a steadier time, and the planks have never let me down. The same can't be said for my left ankle, which sings in the winter and waltzes in the rain. I reach for the robe. It's not so much a garment as a patchwork of memories. Pockets mended by Evelyn's hands, cuffs gnawed by the old tabby cat, now just a memory. The fabric smells of driftwood smoke and starched hope. I pull it tight around my chest and head for the kitchen. The kettle is already full, another habit from the lighthouse years when you prepared for every small emergency before it arrived. I set it on the stove and strike a match. The little flame struggles at first, then blooms yellow and sure beneath the kettle's belly. While the water wakes, I look out the window. The yard is a frosted postcard, roses shriveled on their stems, a dusting of last night's snow clinging to the driftwood fence, a blackbird sitting sentry on the gate. Past that, the sea. Willow Cove's waters aren't blue yet. They're slate and promise, horizon blurred where sky and wave make their truce. I breathe in, fill my lungs with brine and coming morning. My body knows it's home. When the kettle starts to murmur, I grind the coffee beans by hand. The sound is a gentle snore, familiar as rain on shingles. I've never trusted machines. Give me a crank and a filter and I'll give you something worth sipping. Coffee in hand, I light the fire. The matches are kept in a blue tin stamped with a faded lighthouse, a birthday gift from Benjamin decades ago. The logs catch quickly, flames fanning out like the hem of a church lady's skirt. The warmth is immediate, grateful. I lower myself into the old armchair, journal balanced on my knee. This is my real morning, the page, the pen, the promise that no hour is wasted if it's remembered. Dawn comes slow here. I've lived in cities where the sun leaps over rooftops all at once, like a dog chasing a ball. But here it creeps, sneaking up the cliffs and spilling gently through the curtains, so soft you don't notice until the whole cottage glows. I write these lines by firelight and habit, trying to catch the world before it wakes and changes shape. There are things worth seeing only in the dark. The lighthouse pulsing over the bay, the hush of snow on water, the stars scattered like broken teeth above the steeple. Most of all, I love the silence. Not the emptiness of it, but the way the quiet holds every possible thing, just waiting to happen. In a few minutes, I'll hear Marco's bakery open. The Bellinis have baked for 3 generations. Their morning bread smells of orange peel and patience. I know the rhythm by heart. At 6:07, Marco sweeps the porch. At 6:13, he unlocks the glass case. And at 6:17 exactly, he rings a little bell so the whole street knows it's safe to crave again. By 6:20, the lighthouse hums. You can't hear it unless you're listening, but I always am. The new keeper, young Kelly from the mainland, runs a tight ship. She's fussy about schedules and keeps the lamp trimmed as if the Queen herself will sail by. Sometimes I miss the way we did it in my day, more heart than manual, more luck than science. But there's beauty in knowing the light will never go out. If the wind's right, I can catch the first note of the ferry horn, though it's not due until 7. Samuel Reed's been captain of the Stella Maris for 40 years. He claims he knows every ripple in the harbor by name, and I believe him. Once, in a storm, he piloted blind and landed the boat so gently no one woke from their nap. That's a kind of faith you don't get from maps or engines. It's born from 1,000 careful mornings. I sip the coffee bitter and hot and let my mind go soft around the edges. The fire spits now and then, as if it wants to join the conversation. I oblige. Sometimes when I'm lucky, I remember a dream before it escapes. Last night I walked the cliffs with Evelyn, hand in hand, the wind making her hair a banner. We didn't speak, we just listened to the grass bend under our boots. She squeezed my fingers at the edge of the path and said, "If we don't keep walking, the wind will learn our names and never let us go." I woke before I could answer, but I like to think she heard me laugh. It's not loneliness that wakes me early, though I suppose it keeps me up some nights. No, it's the fear of missing something quiet and miraculous, the kind of moment that disappears when there's an audience. The world is so full of noise now. Even the sea, which used to drown every other sound, is invaded by phones and radios and the low hum of satellite. That's why I wake early, to hear the world as God made it, unscripted and tender. I glance at the mantel where a candle burns beside Evelyn's picture. She's young there, a year or 2 out of college, eyes sharp and mouth forever on the verge of mischief. I tell her good morning as I do every day, and promise to bring her news from town if there's any worth telling. Outside, the sky blushes faintly at the rim. I hear the first seagull announce its ambitions for the day. I close the journal, the page still damp from the pen, and set it on the table. The house is officially awake now. I stoke the fire, gather my second cup, and watch the horizon gather light. Today will be the same as yesterday, which is another way of saying today will be a miracle, just in smaller print. I'm on the porch by 6:30, watching frost melt from the railings. The roses are sleeping, but their thorns are awake. I prick my finger on a twig while straightening the old trellis. Should have worn gloves, I mutter, but the blood is quick to bead and quicker to dry. The wind is sharp, but I like it that way. Keeps the mind nimble. My father used to say, a man needs something to push against, or he'll end up floating. I imagine him now out at the end of the pier, hands folded behind his back, shoes splintered by salt and care. He was a quieter man than I am, but his voice carried far when it counted. Willow Cove is slow to wake, but when it does so with ceremony. I see the first lights blink on in the cottages along the shore, each one a promise to the morning. Curtains drawn, kettles set to boil, newspapers fetched from the porch, the print still wet from the press. Across the street, old Mrs. Bellini feeds the sparrows. She wears the same pea-green cardigan every day, the buttons mismatched and one sleeve shorter than the other. I wave. She waves back, and for a moment I am young again, running errands for my mother, clutching a paper sack of poppy seed rolls. The air smelled sweeter then, or maybe I was just better tuned. The mailbox is empty, which is a good thing. Mondays are for letters, Tuesdays for bills. I check anyway. Habit is a stubborn sailor. Once when I was a boy, I found a robin's egg nestled inside. The shell was so blue it looked painted. My mother said, "Some things are too beautiful to keep. Put it back and let it become what it's meant to." I did. And a week later there was a hungry chick. I think of that every time I hesitate to send a letter. Words need air, too. From the porch, I have a perfect view of the lighthouse, standing stubborn against the sky, stripes of blue and white fading with grace. My grandfather built the first lantern tower, a skeleton of wood and good intentions. My father replaced it with brick and hope. I was the last to keep the light by hand, winding the old clockwork and trimming the flame. Now it runs on solar and the faith of the maintenance crew, but some nights I swear I see a ghost of the old lamp burning behind the glass. The sea is a quilt of silver and shadow. The tide is out, but the sand remembers it well. I see the ferry Stella Maris moored at the dock, beside a row of skiffs, some new, most ancient. Willow Cove never throws away a boat. We patch, we paint, we pass them down. A good hull is worth more than gold. And here, in the hush between waves and wind, you can almost hear the sea remembering, too. The sun clears the cliff at last, and for a few minutes everything is bathed in a light so gentle I could weep. I don't, but the feeling sits quietly between my ribs and my throat. I head inside, the warmth of the fire wrapping me like a promise. Breakfast is simple: toast, a boiled egg, the last of the tangerines. I eat slowly, savoring every bite, because at this age food is not just fuel, it's proof. Proof that you're here, that your hands still work, that hunger can be a kind of happiness. I thumb through the paper, noting the headlines with a scholar's eye for nonsense. The world outside Willow Cove feels more distant every year. There's talk of rising seas, politics, a film being shot down the coast. None of it matters much here. Then a name jumps out at me: Benjamin Valentine of Willow Cove, to head Marine Science Initiative at the university. I set the paper down and smile. Ben was always the clever one, too restless for the slow watch, too hungry for the world. But he writes every Sunday, rain or shine. In his last letter, he said he'd be visiting soon, bringing his son. I try not to count the weeks between visits, but sometimes the math does itself. After breakfast, I tend to the house. There's beauty in repetition, in the care of things. I dust the mantel, tighten a loose screw, water the spider plant in the window. The leaves have grown wild, like a head of unruly hair. Evelyn would have liked that, She always said every living thing is just trying to outgrow its pot. In the back room, I sort through a box of old journals. The spines are soft, the ink faded, but every page is a time machine. I run a thumb over the dates and feel the years lift, one after another, like lanterns set free on the tide. Here's one from 1980, the year Ben was born, the year the sea nearly took the harbor in a September storm. My handwriting is frantic, but the entry is clear. Tonight, as I watched the lamp swing above the black, I heard a cry from the shore. Went down to the rocks, found a woman soaked and shivering, clutching a bundle. The baby was blue-lipped, silent. I wrapped them both in my coat and carried them to the house. By sunrise, both were asleep, safe. Sometimes I think that was the night I became a father. I closed the book, tracing the spine. I haven't told Ben that story yet. Maybe I will next time he visits. Or maybe I'll just write it in a letter and let it find him when he's ready. The cottage ticks with quiet purpose. The clock, the fire, the sea just beyond the window. I pour a second cup, settle by the hearth, and listen as the world opens itself, minute by golden minute. By 10, the town is fully awake. From my study window, I see children trailing backpacks to the schoolhouse, their laughter brighter than the morning sun. The bell rings, and the sound skips over the rooftops like a thrown stone. A knock at the door startles me. I'm not expecting anyone. I wipe my hands on the robe and answer, careful not to let the latch stick. It's Clara Hughes, the postmistress, cheeks red, hair tucked under a knitted cap with a pom-pom on top. She holds a single letter, wax-sealed and thick as a prayer book. "Morning, Arthur," she said. "This one's special." I thank her and offer a cup, but she shakes her head. Too much to do. Maybe tomorrow. She winks, and I'm left holding the letter as if it weighs more than it should. Inside, I break the seal. The handwriting is old-fashioned, elegant. Not Ben's. Not anyone I recognize. The letter reads, "Dear Mr. Valentine, I'm writing on behalf of a friend who wishes to remain anonymous for now. She has read your Willow Cove journals and finds them a comfort in difficult times. She wonders if you might be willing to share more of your stories with those who need them most. If you are willing, please light a lantern in your window tonight. She will see it. Thank you, and God bless." I fold the letter, heart a little lighter. It's a funny thing, hope. It comes in stranger packages every year. I look to the shelf where my old lantern sits, a bit rusted but still serviceable. I smile, remembering the nickname that's never quite left me, Lantern. Tonight, I think, there will be light. But for now, the day is new. There is bread to fetch and neighbors to greet, and a dozen small miracles waiting for anyone who bothers to wake early and look for them. After lunch, leftover soup and a biscuit still warm from Marco's oven, I walk down to the beach. The air has turned, trading sharp for sweet. The tide is up, and the sand is thick with tiny shells, pink and pearly as children's laughter. I stoop to collect a few, turning them in my palm. I've done this since I was a boy, searching for perfect ones, the kind with no cracks or holes. Now I prefer the broken ones. They tell a better story. A gull struts by, eyeing me with the suspicion only birds and parish priests can muster. I nod to it, and it flies off, a white flicker against the heavy sky. At the far end of the beach, a pair of fishermen haul in their nets. I recognize them, father and son, the Reeds. They wave, and I wave back. The boy, maybe 7, wears a sweater 2 sizes too large, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He grins, proud of the morning's catch. The father gives a thumbs up, and I return it, feeling absurdly important. I walk as far as the jetty, where the rocks are slippery with moss. There I sit, letting the sea spray salt my face. I close my eyes, listen to the water, and remember another morning years ago, when Evelyn and I sat on this same stone and watched the world turn. She traced the lines on my palm and said every one led back to the sea. I open my eyes. The horizon is brighter now, the clouds lifting. I stand, bones stiff but heart steadier, and head back toward the cottage. The rest of the day is spent in small repairs, tightening a loose hinge, mending a torn curtain, coaxing a stubborn leak from the bathroom tap. I work slowly, savoring the feel of tools in my hand, the way old wood responds to care. When dusk approaches, I set the lantern in the window, just as the letter asked. The glass is clouded, but the light shines through, yellow and sure. I watch it from the porch, sipping a mug of chamomile, and wonder who might be watching from the other side. The town glows in the twilight. Porch lights flicker on, one by one, until Main Street becomes a line of gentle stars. I hear the bakery bell ring for closing time, the church bells chiming the Angelus, and the distant bark of a dog who thinks the night needs warning. I sit and watch, content. There's a peace in knowing you've done what you can, that your light, however small, might guide someone home. When darkness falls, I go inside, stoke the fire, and open the journal to a fresh page. The lantern is lit. I hope someone sees it. Before sleep, I kneel beside the bed, as I always do. Not because I believe God is keeping score, but because it helps me remember the ones I've loved, the ones I miss, and the ones I've yet to meet. I pray for them, and for myself, and for the quiet miracle of another day. Then I slip under the covers, close my eyes, and let the sea carry me wherever it pleases. If you wake early tomorrow, look out across the bay. There will be a light, steady as hope, burning for anyone who needs it. I promise. My midday journal entry. The afternoon is a gold coin spun flat on the table of Willow Cove. The old town glows with it, every clapboard, shingle, and wind chime catching the light and refusing to let it go. I take my walk the slow way down the hill, hands deep in my pockets, the letter folded soft from rereading. It's heavier than it looks. Paper shouldn't have that kind of weight, but that's what words are for, to make a burden out of the unsaid. I amble past Mrs. Bellini's porch. She's there, as always, shelling peas into a blue bowl, her face turned up like a sunflower. "Arthur, are you bringing us more of your stories?" she calls. I grin and promise to do my best. She clucks her tongue, not unkindly. Bring them quick before my ears fall off. The pea shells snap open like secrets, and her laughter follows me down the lane. Main Street isn't a street, not in the city sense. It's a cobbled ribbon braided through the heart of the cove, lined with shop windows and boxes heavy with purple pansies. The bakery door is propped open with a stone, and cinnamon and citrus ride the air. Inside, Marco is up to his wrists in dough, his brow dusted with flour. He looks up, nods. "You need a loaf lantern?" "Not today, Marco." "Maybe tomorrow," I say, and he winks, as if tomorrow is a joke only we are in on. I watch how the afternoon catches on every small thing. The glass of the post office door, the brass railings of the town hall, the way sunlight makes a cross on St. Bridget's steeple. I've walked these stones 1,000 times, each trip the same and somehow new. There's comfort in repetition, in knowing things before they happen. At the docks, the ferry is in, gulls riding the thermals above it, shrieking their private symphonies. Fishermen stand in pairs, boots braced against the boards, trading stories as they gut the day's catch. The air is sharp with brine and the clean, cold slap of wind off the sea. I close my eyes and let it fill me, all the way down to the soles of my boots. The post office is cool and blue-shadowed inside, always faintly lemon, a cleaning trick the woman swears keeps mice away. I recognize half the faces in line. Their nods are paragraphs in a longer conversation. Clara's at the counter, hair the color of dandelions left too long in the sun. "Afternoon, Arthur. Got another for you," she says, sliding a small bundle wrapped in twine. I'm about to thank her when a voice, small but clear, comes from behind me. "Excuse me. Who lives in the white cottage up on the bluff?" Green shutters, lantern in the window. A young woman, mid-20s, chestnut hair cropped short, eyes brown as river stones, rings the strap of her bag. There's tiredness in her, and hope, each waiting to see which will win. Clara answers first. "That's our lantern, Arthur Valentine, here." She gestures at me with a stamp, proud as a mother cat. The young woman turns, a shy, careful smile. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude," she says. "I just noticed the light. I walk at night sometimes, and it's always there." I feel my ears go pink, which is a feat at my age. "Old habits die hard," I say. "The lantern's been in the family longer than the house." I watch her face for a flicker of recognition, but all I see is relief, soft as new wool. She introduces herself. "Miriam just arrived, staying with her aunt for a spell." "It's silly, but the lantern reminds me of home," she says. "My mother kept one in our kitchen window for the travelers." She laughs, embarrassed. "Even though we lived on a dead-end street." "I know the feeling," I say. "This cove is the end of the world in some ways, but you'd be surprised how many souls it collects." I mean it kindly, and she glances down, as if caught holding something she shouldn't. I nod at her bundle of letters. "Writing to someone or waiting for a reply?" Her smile is grateful. A bit of both. She looks at her shoes, then at me. "Would you, if you don't mind, tell me about the lantern sometime? I like knowing why things are the way they are." I should have said yes at once, but I hesitate, thinking of Evelyn, of stories told to strangers when I wished I'd kept some closer to the chest. Then Miriam looks at me like she's already home, and that's enough. "Of course," I say. "I make a mean cup of tea if you're partial." Her relief is a sunrise. I'd like that. Very much. We agree on a time, after the supper hour when the light is low. She thanks me and leaves. The bell above the door jingles her departure. Clara leans across the counter, grinning. You've made her day, you know. I watch the door swing closed. Maybe she's made mine. The walk home is softer. I pass the bakery again. This time Marco tosses me a roll wrapped in parchment. "On the house," he says, "for Lantern's new friend." I shake my head and take it anyway, the crust warm against my palm. At the cottage, the wind has picked up and the clouds are running in from the west. The sky turns pewter, no threat in it, only a promise of rain or a good night for stories. I set the kettle to boil, lay a fresh log on the fire, and take out the good cups. Not the porcelain with violets, Evelyn's favorite, but the heavy stoneware, chipped at the rim. The kind that can't break easily. I wait in the armchair, the letter on the table unopened. I tell myself I'm saving it for later, but I know I'm just nervous about what it might say. Funny how a stranger's curiosity can feel like a reckoning. She arrives on time, knocking lightly as if the house might be napping. I open the door, she shivers once, then steps over the threshold, shedding the outside like an old coat. Her eyes go wide, hungry for details, the smell of bread, the flicker of the fire, the row of worn books above the hearth. "You have a beautiful home," she says, and I almost believe her. We sit, tea between us, and talk about nothing. The weather, the quirks of small towns, the way the sea changes color with your mood. She listens with her whole body, leaning in as if every word is a gift she can't return. I find myself telling her about the lighthouse, my father, the way Evelyn used to whistle while chopping vegetables. I say her name out loud, and it doesn't sting. Miriam cradles the mug in both hands. "My mother would have liked you," she says. "She used to say kindness is like light. It doesn't cost anything, but it changes what you see." I think of the lantern, the letter, and all the nights I've sat alone, hoping someone might notice the small flame in the window. I tell her about the letter, how it arrived without a sender, asking only that I light a lantern. Miriam smiles, a secret smile. "Maybe it's not about who sent it," she says. "Maybe it's about who answers." We are quiet for a spell, not an empty silence, but one full of everything we don't need to say. As dusk curls around the house, I fetch the old lantern. I clean the glass, trim the wick, pour in a splash of oil. Miriam watches, her eyes shining with reflected fire. I set the lantern in the window, as my grandfather did, as my father did, as I have always done. But this time it's different. The light is not for me or the memory of someone lost, it's for the world beyond, for wanderers and the lonely, for anyone who needs to find their way home. We sit together in the glow, two shapes against the coming night, and something uncoils inside me. An old sadness, perhaps, or the stubborn belief that goodness can outlast the dark. Miriam looks at the lantern, then at me. "Do you think anyone will see it tonight?" I nod. Someone always does. Later, after she's gone, I walk the rooms in darkness, listening to the storm begin, the sea churning with its own secret purpose. The lantern burns steady in the window, a thumbprint of light against the vast, indifferent night. I make my notes in the journal, the lines a little shaky but true. Sometimes all you can do is keep the lamp burning, not for yourself, but for whoever's out there searching for a sign. It's a small thing, but sometimes small things are enough. I close the book, the fire warm on my skin. The lantern holds its vigil. The night is long, but the light is longer. Tomorrow I'll walk into town, and maybe someone new will have seen it. If so, I'll be here, waiting. My evening journal entry. From my porch, I can see the lantern in the window, its flame still stubborn against the dusk. The night wears its intentions plainly, tucking the sun behind a curtain of blue-black and rolling the clouds in, thick and close as old wool. The air changes first, a heaviness, something electric caught in the teeth of the breeze. Down on the harbor, the last ferry is moored snug to the dock, and the gulls ride the updrafts, wings bright against the coming dark. Even the bakery closes early. I watch Marco sweep his stoop, eyes tilted skyward, as if hoping to negotiate with the weather. But there are some things you learn not to argue with. When the first drops fall, I'm inside, tea in hand, chair pulled close to the fire. The wood crackles, sap hissing as it turns to steam. I listen to the way rain begins, hesitant like a child at a closed door, then relentless, all at once. The sound on the roof is 1,000 hands applauding the night, or maybe warning it back. I like that sound, and the way it smooths out the silence. I close my eyes and count the seconds between thunder and flash. The wind finds its voice quickly, low, then rising, a song you remember only in pieces. There's an old hymn we used to sing at St. Bridget's, the words lost somewhere between Latin and longing, but the melody always stuck. The storm reminds me of that, all yearning, no lyrics. I'm not afraid of storms. I've watched the sea become a fist, seen the waves claw at the cliffs like a thing possessed. I know how to prepare, candles stacked in the cupboard, matches dry, the old transistor radio tuned to the local frequency. The power flickers twice, but never goes out. Still, I keep the lantern burning. There's comfort in redundancy. Evelyn used to joke that I'd keep the lighthouse lit even if the whole world learned to see in the dark. She wasn't wrong. Maybe I just liked the idea of being needed, even by no one. The cottage shudders when the wind throws itself against the walls. The front windows bow but never break. I built them to outlast anything the Atlantic could muster. Still I check the panes, running a hand along the cold glass. Water beads there, trembling in the candlelight. Outside, the roses are gone to ground, leaves flattened to the earth. I whisper a prayer for them, an old habit, left over from when prayers were the only tool we had. In the lull between thunder, I hear a knock at the door, not loud, just 3 soft taps. For a moment I wonder if I imagined it, but when it comes again, I know it's real. I open the door to find Miriam, rain plastering her hair to her cheeks, a shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. She's shivering, but smiles when she sees me. "I'm sorry," she says. "I thought I could make it back before the worst of it." "Don't be sorry," I say, stepping aside. "Come in. You'll catch your death." The old phrase feels foolish as soon as it leaves my mouth, but she doesn't seem to mind. She enters dripping onto the mat, eyes taking in the flicker of the fire and the glow of the lantern in the window. I fetch a towel, drape it over her shoulders, and set the kettle to boil. She stands near the hearth, turning slowly, as if to warm every angle at once. "It's beautiful in here," she says, not for the first time. "Storms make it cozier," I reply. "At least if you're on the inside looking out." We sit, tea between us, and watch the rain blur the world beyond the glass. Miriam holds her mug with both hands, fingers pink from the cold. For a long while we say nothing, letting the wind fill the space. Eventually she speaks. I always used to be afraid of storms. When I was little, my mother would light every lamp in the house, like that would keep the thunder out. But I'd still hide under the table. She laughs softly. I didn't know then that light isn't for the world. It's for the person who keeps it burning. That's a lesson most people never learn, I say. My father used to tell me the lighthouse didn't fight the storm. It just stood there, stubborn, so everyone else knew which way was home. She looks at me, eyes bright, as if she's about to ask a question, but thinks better of it. The silence that follows is comfortable, the kind you share only with someone who understands the cost of words. Thunder rolls closer, shaking the cups on the table. The lantern in the window flares, then steadies. I watch it, a pulse of gold against the howling night. There's a moment as the wind peaks when I remember every storm I've ever lived through. The night Ben was born, the day Evelyn fell ill, the evening my father died, and I kept the lighthouse burning anyway, just in case he was watching. Each memory is a wave, and I let them pass through me, not fighting, not holding back. The weight of years isn't a burden tonight, it's ballast, keeping me upright when the world pitches and rolls. Miriam asks softly, "Do you think anyone's out there tonight, looking for the light?" I don't have to think about it. Always, I say. There's always someone. She nods, sipping her tea, watching the lantern as if she can see its reflection somewhere beyond the storm. After a while she stands, wraps the towel tighter, and thanks me. "I should go," she says. "My aunt will worry." I walk her to the door, shield her with an umbrella down the path. The wind nearly snatches it from my hand. She laughs, head thrown back, rain running down her nose. At the corner she turns and waves, then disappears into the night. I stand in the doorway a moment longer, letting the rain soak my slippers. The storm is a living thing, but it cannot touch the warmth inside. I close the door, bolt it, and return to the fire. I take the journal from the table and write. The storm arrived just after sunset and hasn't let up since. The lantern burns in the window, and I think of all the nights I sat at the lighthouse, watching the weather try to swallow the world. The lamp never failed, not once, no matter how hard the wind pulled. Sometimes I wonder if it's stubbornness or faith that keeps a light alive. Maybe there's no difference. Tonight, I had a visitor. She brought the storm in with her and left a little of it behind. I don't mind. Some nights it's good to have proof that the world is still wild. The fire is low now, but the cottage is warm. I think of Evelyn and my father and the long line of Valentines who kept the lantern burning. I think of Miriam walking home through the rain and hope the light is enough to guide her. The world is a dark place, but I am not afraid. The wind can rage, the sea can shout, but the lamp will hold. So long as the light keeps burning, no one is truly alone. I set the pen down, close the journal, and tend the fire one last time. The wind is softer now, the storm content with what it's taken. I pour myself a small glass of port, raise it to the lantern, and toast the night. To the lost and to the found. To the light and those who keep it. To tomorrow, which will surely come, even if we're not here to see it. When I turn out the lamps, nights, the last thing I see is the lantern in the window, trembling but unbroken, steady as hope. By morning, the world is rinsed clean. The sky, all gold and forgiveness. The roses stand again, battered but blooming. I make coffee, slow, careful, and stand by the window, watching the light creep down the hills into the cove. There are footprints in the sand below. Not mine, not Miriam's, someone else's. Maybe walking off a worry, maybe just wandering. I hope they saw the lantern. I hope in some small way it mattered. I pour a second cup, take it to the porch, and sit in the hush that only comes after a night like that. If you wake early tomorrow, look to the bluffs above Willow Cove. There will be a light in the window. It's not much, but sometimes it's enough. End of journal entry. My lantern flickers now, its wick grown short, and our story finds its harbor. If your eyelids weigh like anchors, surrender to the hearth's soft conversation and the sea's distant lullaby. These soft-spoken sleep stories exist for just this purpose, to be the last voice you hear before dreams claim you. You've been listening to the Willow Cove Collection, where ASMR storytelling drifts through salt air and firelight, told from an old keeper's chair beside the sea. If tonight's tale brought you even a little peace, consider mooring yourself to our shore by subscribing. Each week, new bedtime stories for sleep and calm wash up like treasures on our beach. And for those wishing to help keep this lighthouse burning, you'll find a link below to leave a small tip for the tea. It keeps both cup and story warm. Until the tide brings us together again, rest gently, dream sweetly, and remember, here in Willow Cove, even the smallest flame endures the night.